Today we will tell you the story of a book where a bride gave birth to someone's illegitimate child on the very first night of her marriage. The people who came to the wedding were shocked to see this and began to repent, saying, "Astagfirullah, Astagfirullah." When you find out who the real father of the child was, you too will be stunned. And then, what punishment her husband gave her, you will know if you watch this video till the end. My name is Hamid. Today was the first night of my marriage, and I was very happy. My mother had praised my bride a lot, saying she was a girl from a very respectable family. But how was I to know that this respectable woman would show me this on the very first night of marriage? When I entered the room, she, with her face covered, started shouting and screaming. Frightened, I woke her up from her sleep. Then, when she saw me, she began crying even louder. I asked, "What happened? Are you okay?" She kept saying, "My stomach is hurting a lot. My baby is about to be born. Please call the midwife." Hearing this, I was completely shocked. But seeing how much she was screaming and how much pain she was in, I immediately ran outside. At that moment, it didn't even cross my mind that she was my wife, and tonight was our first night together. I simply couldn't bear her screams. But before I could do anything, a woman entered the room. She was dressed in black clothes. Along with her were several girls. The woman looked quite young. They grabbed my wife and then covered her completely with a large sheet so no one could see her. I just kept staring. What was going on? As far as I knew, my wife was a modest girl from a respectable family. Then how, on the very first night, was her baby being born? I followed behind them. They put my wife in a car outside and left quickly. The house was full of guests. Everyone kept asking, what happened to the bride? Why was she suddenly taken to the hospital? I stood there stunned. I said nothing to anyone, because my wife was from a high-status family, and I couldn't expose her honor like this. I went to my room thinking of talking to my parents. But in my mind, a bigger criminal than her were her parents. Who married such a girl to me? Had my parents not noticed this matter either? I thought to myself, I should talk to my in-laws. I called my wife's father. He answered the phone. I didn't get angry. I spoke very softly. "Uncle, your daughter was taken to the hospital with the midwife and some girls. And I'm sitting here swallowing the insult. If your daughter had a relationship with someone, you could have at least told me." He said, "Have you gone mad? What nonsense are you talking about? My daughter was perfectly fine." Just then his wife came from behind and said, "He's telling the truth." Hearing this, their voices seemed to choke. They immediately cut the call. Now I was certain that my wife was carrying someone else's illegitimate child. They had only fooled me. I thought, I should divorce my wife right now. But before that, my mother came into the room. She said, "Son, come outside. There's nothing to worry about." Surprised, I said to my mother, "My wife gave birth to someone else's child on the very first night of our marriage, and you're saying there's nothing to worry about?" She said, "Son, I understand your pain, but you also have to hear what I have to say." I said, "Okay, Mom. All my life I've listened to you. This time I will listen again. Am I some kind of toy? Nobody cares about my life." She said, "Hey, son, why are you acting like women? I want what's good for you. Come outside. Your in-laws have come to talk to you." I said, "Mom, what will I talk to them about? Now they will come and say, 'Protect our daughter's honor, forgive her.'" Mom said, "It's not like that. You just come outside and listen to what your father has to say." I said, "What does Dad want?" She said, "You go to the hospital, check on your wife and the baby lying next to her. Pick him up in your arms and show him to everyone and say, 'This is my child.'" I said, "Mom, are you in your senses? Are you my parents or my enemies? Why should I accept someone else's illegitimate child? This cannot happen." She said, "Son, you will do exactly what we tell you. I swear to you, if you listen to us, then when you come home, I will tell you everything. After that, whatever you say, that will be done." I was forced to say, "All right, I'm going." So I left the house. I reached the hospital. I was praying, "Oh Allah, please let this be a lie. Allah, after so long, you showed me the joy of marriage, and now this pain," with a heart full of sorrow. When I entered the room, I saw some people there, 4 or 5 girls, and 1 man. The man's face was not very attractive, just ordinary, but looking at him, he seemed very cunning and sly. When he saw me, he stood up in shock. I said, "Brother, who are you?" He said, "I am the father of this child." Seeing the child, my blood began to boil, but I remembered my father's oath that I would do exactly what they said. I said to the man, "If this child is yours, then you take him. But I will take my wife home. She is my wife, my honor. I married her. The bond of marriage is not so weak that it will break in an instant. And most importantly, I love my wife very much." Hearing this, his face turned pale. He left in anger. My wife was crying. I picked up the child and handed him to the nearby nurse. I said, "For now, you take care of him." My wife is not well. I was shocked. How could such a respectable girl do such a disgusting thing? I brought her home from the hospital. My mother and father were standing at the door. Looking at my wife, there was no sign on her body that she had given birth to a child. She was walking perfectly fine and was still wearing the same wedding dress. As soon as Mom saw her, she said, "My daughter-in-law has come," and hugged her. She also greeted my parents with respect. Looking at her, it didn't seem at all like she was married. In fact, it seemed as if she was still a virgin. My mom affectionately made her sit beside her. At that moment, I felt a lot of hatred towards my parents. I felt that maybe they were being kind to her because she was a rich daughter-in-law, which they should not have done. My wife had not only made a big mistake, but had committed a great sin, for which she should have been punished. But my mom was pampering her as if she were a very pure and pious woman. I found it very strange. Just then, a woman entered our house. Along with her was a man. They looked like husband and wife. My wife said, "This is my sister and brother-in-law." In their hands, they were holding a baby. As soon as she arrived, her sister hugged her and said, "Sister, thank you so much. You have done me a very big favor. I will never forget this favor of yours in my life. If it wasn't for this child, I would have gotten divorced today and gone back to my father's house." Her husband looked at her with angry eyes and said, "There is no such thing. Don't say such things unnecessarily." Then he said, "Now this child is ours in our own blood. Now we will have him." My wife blushed and laughed. Then suddenly my wife started acting as if she'd become very weak. "Bring me some yakni. I am feeling weak. My head is spinning." Hearing this, my mom immediately stood up and said, Yes, why not? I will bring my daughter-in-law hot yakni right away. After all, my daughter-in-law has given birth to a beautiful son." Hearing this, my blood started to boil. What has happened to my mother? It seems she has gone completely crazy with greed for money. I followed my mother into the kitchen. I said, "Are you in your right mind? After giving birth to an illegitimate child, you are still calling her daughter-in-law? And what is this drama outside? You told me that when I returned from the hospital, you would tell me everything." Mom said, "Be patient for a little while. Let these people leave, then I will tell you everything. Even then, if your heart is not satisfied, then divorce her." I stayed quiet. "All right, let's be patient for 1 or 2 hours." I came outside and saw that everyone was looking at my wife as if she had done something great. Looking at the child, I felt disgust. Then they left. I thanked Allah in my heart. Now I could divorce her and be free forever. But after that, what my mother said left me shocked. Mom said, "Son Amir, Listen carefully to what we are saying. At that time, her wife was also sitting next to her. Mom said, "You tell me yourself. Looking at your wife, does it seem like she has given birth?" I looked closely at my wife and said, "How would I know? The criminal knows what she has done." Mom said, "Yes, son. But giving birth to a child is not a crime. In fact, for that, one has to endure a lot of pain. Do you see any mark on her face or body that she was pregnant?" I couldn't understand anything. My head was spinning. In anger, I stood up and said, "What kind of drama is this? Say clearly what you mean. On one hand, you say this child is hers, and the girl also said it was her child coming, and that lover was also in the hospital, saying the baby was his. And now you say she was never pregnant." I looked at my mother angrily. Mom said, "Son, sit down, I will tell you everything." Actually, that child was not hers. I said, "I am not so stupid that you will say she is a pure girl, and I will just believe it." Mom said, "Amir, that woman who came, you met her, didn't you?" Then she turned to my wife and said, "Daughter, you yourself tell my son the truth." My wife said, "I know this hurt you very much. No husband can tolerate this. I was little when my elder sister got married. Other than her, there was no one in the world I loved more. Mom was always sick, so I spent my time with my sister. She was like a mother to me. At her wedding, I cried so much that I even stopped eating. Slowly, I understood that she is now happy with her own family. 5 years passed after her marriage, yet she had no children. One day, she came home looking very worried and said, "My mother-in-law keeps scolding me all the time for not having a child." I consoled her and said, "I will find a solution." I said, "Tell your husband that we will adopt a child." My sister agreed. She told her husband, but he said, "We will not take anyone else's child. If any of your relatives can give their own blood child, then it's fine." She looked at the wives of the uncles and the brothers-in-law. No one agreed. Then my sister, feeling hopeless, came to me. I told my father, "Get me married." That's when my relationship with you was fixed. On the wedding night, I said, "I am pregnant." They believed that I would give them a child, but in reality, I was not pregnant, because the wedding had taken place 1 year earlier, but the rukhsati had not happened. You had not even touched me. I only acted in such a way that everyone would think I had given birth to a child. I asked, "If this child is not yours, then whose is it?" Mother said, "Son, that child is your sister Nadia's. She had a relationship with a boy. And when we found out, it was already too late. She had become pregnant. At that time, your wife helped us. We secretly put Nadia in the car and took her to the hospital, so that our honor would remain, and her child would also be saved. We told your wife's father as well, and he agreed. Otherwise, today we would not have been in a position to show our faces." Hearing everything, I was stunned. On one hand, I was happy that my wife was completely innocent. On the other hand, I was angry at my sister, but what was done was done. If I punished my sister, it would have brought dishonor. I apologized to my wife. We started living happily and peacefully. A year later, Allah blessed us with a son of our own. I was very happy. I also got my sister married to that boy. Now we are all living together in peace and happiness. Dear friends, how did you like this incident? Surely you liked it a lot. Friends, this was today's video. If you liked it, please like, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon. Thank you.